think the plot, like the backstory, is really nice about why he's going to do it and stuff, and how the film opens.
Yeah.
But I think then, so you're going to be doing an opening sequence.
Yeah.
So the opening sequence will be like him at the train station, getting to his dad, seeing that he's still taking drugs or whatever, and then him running away into the night.
No, so the opening sequence is him at the train station, then he'll be having flashbacks of what it used to be like with his dad and his previous home life, and like getting bullied at the orphanage, etc.
Yeah.
And then when the opening sequence finishes, when he gets on the train, but you don't see him get on the train.
Okay, fine. And that's the bit, what, that you have to... So you just have to...
So we'll be filming that bit, yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right, then. So I may as well hit you with some questions.
Yeah, go for it.
So, what do you like about the idea?
I like where you're starting the film, actually. I like the fact that you're not just starting it with, like, him in an orphanage and dropping the paperwork and things like that. I think it's a nice starting point, and I like the idea of flashbacks. It'd be interesting to see how you do, like, how the viewer of the film would know that it's a flashback. It's good to know, like, think about how you're going to do, the actual flashback moment, because particularly if it's an opening sequence, you haven't got, like, had much time to get to know that character.
Yeah.
It's hard to know whether it's a flashback or whether it's, like, part of their real life or whether they're mentally unstable or something.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a nice place to start the film, though. I like that idea.
Okay.
I think that you explain the character well as well in the plot. Like, the backstory is really clear, like, about his mother's dying, so why his dad has got into drugs as well. You're not just like, his dad's a druggie. Like, you explain why that's happened.
So you like the complex narrative?
Yes, okay. Exactly.
And the intimacy between the characters?
That's exactly what I like, yeah.
There you go. Is there anything that you don't like or you find maybe a bit confusing?
I don't particularly like the way he finds out that his dad tried to get in contact.
Yeah.
Like, not sure I find it realistic that he would be carrying that paperwork and then he'd just drop it.
Yeah.
Almost, it would be... I would almost... That's the bit I'm not so sure on. It doesn't seem as realistic to me, so...
Is there any other way that you think that we could do it?
I wonder if it's almost like he's being called into someone's office for something, and he sees, I don't know, his name.
Oh, so he, like, catches it out of the corner of his eye?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. That's nice, yeah.
And maybe he goes back into the office at another time and, you know...
So something a bit more mysterious other than obvious?
Yeah, exactly. I just think, it's a bit of a coincidence that he'd be carrying the very papers and he'd happen to drop it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I think that although it is quite a good idea to have what we've originally put in, I can see where you're coming from because it is quite simplistic. And obviously this is for a British independent, and so it has to be quite, a well understood film, and a lot of people need to have quite a lot of, sophistication to understand it, or to understand it at a nice level. And I think that's kind of bringing in more of a unsophisticated audience.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it could be made sort of it's almost a bit too simple for the audience that would be watching it.
Okay. Other than that, is there anything else that you would change about the film or opening sequence?
No, I really like the opening sequence idea. I think the narrative is all really clear. I think... No, the rest of it I think is good. It makes sense to me.
Okay, so having read our idea, what did you like about it?
I really like how naturalistic it seems. It's good that it's a very human story with a very clear kind of dramatic through line trajectory. It seems like it's got a really engaging dramatic arc, and because we see the film, I presume, from kind of one character's point of view, it's going to be quite interesting to see, and quite sort of dramatically beneficial that it's from one point of view.
That?
Yep.
Is there anything that you didn't like about it?
There wasn't anything that I didn't like about it. I think maybe you need to think about putting yourself in the position of that specific character, and the sort of naturalism of the film will come from sort of in-depth research into how people react in those institutions and in that environment, and being brought up in those conditions. That would be the most important thing, I think. But I don't. There's nothing about it I didn't like. No.
Okay. Is there anything that you would change if this was your production?
Not really. No, I think it's a really engaging film, and I think, as I said, it's really clear, and that's important. And if you're telling a story from the point of view of one sort of lead character, I think it's important that you have a very clear grasp of who he is, or she is, and in this case he, but in their intentions. And I think that it's clear in the synopsis of the plot that happens. I kind of know, I understand in a sense who he is and where he's going, and why he wants to get there. I get the journey, the sort of literal journey and the emotional journey. So no, there isn't a lot I would change. No.
If you were talking specifically about the opening sequence, if you were to film it, how would you go about it? I mean, would there be any specific technical elements, framing, etc., that you would specifically look at?
Well, the important thing about an opening sequence is that it allows you to, as a filmmaker, to sort of set out your stall, if you like, as to what kind of film you might be making, the audience might be watching. So it's interesting that you might get a chance to sort of immediately let the audience understand the sort of pace of the film, the kind of the genre of the film. The way you shoot it is very important as to how the audience initially reacts to the movie and the experience, but also it gives you the opportunity to, if you want to, subvert that. So what's nice about the opening sequence, I would think in this case, is that it's not necessarily the start of the film, i.e. it's not the start of the story. It's nice to keep the audience guessing. And given that the film opens with a guy at a railway station, we're constantly asking ourselves questions about why he would be there or where he might be going. And I think that's a more intelligent and interesting way of opening it necessarily than opening it in the orphanage, because you can always go back to that. There's no reason why you can't sort of shift the sort of temporal nature of the film. You can go back and forth. You can flashback if you want to, but at the same time, it's nice to allow the audience to make their own mind up as to where this guy's come from, and find out later on what his backstory is. How I would shoot it, it really completely depends what kind of movie you're going to make. I think if you're going to shoot the train station sequence as the opening of the film, then I would say try and make it as intriguing as possible. So give away as little as humanly possible, because at this stage in the process of watching the film, the audience will be, they're most engaged, if you like. So I think you can get away with sort of less is more. I would say I would sort of offer up some information, but not all the information. I would kind of keep a lot back and sort of just construct a story through visuals and not a lot more than that, really.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to say or add about it?
Not really. I think if you're going to write the entire film and make it as a film, I think the most important thing to do it justice is to do as much research as you possibly can on orphanages and how people get put into them and why they get taken away from their parents legally, so that you get all of that exactly right. Because it's a very human story. I think it deserves some time for you to take some time over actually researching how the law is and how situations are, how people exist in orphanages and away from their parents. I think that's really important to getting for the main character's point of view too, but also the backstory needs to be pretty clear. But yeah, that's all I'd say. A lot of research, but that would be about it.
Okay, so having read our idea, what did you like about it?
I like the kind of building suspense in it was good, and the kind of intrigue of kind of what's going on, like what's his dad about, and like what I thought there was the beginning of the film, and then it was kind of when he left, that's when it was all going to begin. Like once he finds his dad on drugs, he was going to kind of that was going to be the beginning of the film. So I was, but yeah, and it was. So just from the plot,
yeah.
It could be really good. You can imagine it kind of developing like the whole. I don't think you have orphanages anymore, but have you ever seen the film Scum?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So that kind of
yeah, like really gritty, like quite hard hitting,
like that.
Yeah.
And him kind of going through the distraught of kind of being lost and stuff.
So you like all the quite like despairing tone and like quite upsetting themes.
Yeah. Bill's kind of you got to build it so you feel for him. And so you got to like the character and understand that he's been through a lot and whatever, and build it up. And then you if you want to if you're kind of riding for him to kind of be success and to have a happy ending or some sort of ending.
Is that how you would prefer it, or would you prefer it to be like completely open ended? So there isn't really any particular like route that he goes down on the ending, or would you prefer that there is a solid ending where we all know what is going to happen from now on?
You kind of want to build it as an arc, don't you? You're going to want it to be depressing that his mum dies, and then his dad's a druggie, and then he just gets beaten up, and it's just this really fucking depressing film and nothing. You want to see like a light that he has some sort of potential, something to happen in the end that, even if you don't know explicit about it, but at least it doesn't end kind of, I don't really know how you do it in this story, but you kind of, that you meet someone, I don't know, has a foster parent or something, I don't know, just some sort of light at the end.
Yeah. So
you're gonna be gunning for him, and you're gonna kind of. You don't have to. It can be really sad, but you kind of. If that's the case, you need to kind of really root for the character.
So you want the character to feel some sort of like sense of hope and like happiness, almost like relief at the end of the film.
Yeah, but also you sort of build up. So the challenge is to build up, wanting to kind of being interested enough in this character that you want him to be. You can feel for him. I don't know.
Yeah.
If he's just been through if he's just sort of him being abused and beaten up, it just might be a bit too much. You need to have some lightness in the film a little bit.
Okay. Is there anything that you would change from what you've read?
Just only because if you're aiming at people who are our age, then people are like a really particular about is that suspending disbelief.
Yeah.
So there's any facts that are kind of like, oh well, I just don't think that's right. Was this meant to be set in modern day? Or is
this is happening now.
Right. So a few things. Harry's the one to speak to about actually film and how you kind of the plot and the story, but. In terms of like factual stuff, kind of like I don't think people get put in orphanages anymore.
Okay.
I think you go to social services and social services try to get foster parents, or they put you into something that isn't quite a home. So
you think that maybe he could go to like a foster family instead of?
I think that'd be better. You might have some lightness in there if you've got like a really nice foster family, but the other kids that are in the foster family, like his foster brothers, sisters, are real bastards to him. That might be the bit that you can be the one raised, but. And like the whole kind of question of when you're kind of adopted, you have your real parents, but you have your adopted parents, and they're really nice to you. But the real parents, the ones you really want, but actually they're the ones that are fucked up and they're trouble for you. And actually, I don't know, maybe if you had like a really strong character that was sort of a foster parent that looked after him. So yeah, I don't think the orphan, and maybe a drug addict is probably, I don't know if parents become drug addicts, but maybe an alcoholic would be a good one.
Ah, okay. So something a little bit more basic rather than.
But it's still exactly the same story. But
yeah.
It's alcohol. He comes in, he's still got bottles of vodka on the floor. When he sees him again, you realise it's
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sort of the same kind of theme. So you think that he should still turn to some sort of comfort, but instead of drugs, it should be drink.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's probably more believable in the situation. It's kind of a lot of people. The only recommendation is kind of try and find. There are loads of stories out there of people who've been through this situation.
Yeah.
And just do some research, read up about people who've been put into care, people who've had alcoholic parents.
Yeah.
Kind of steal. If you're actually making it into a longer script, just kind of look into their stories and steal their little anecdotes about what it was like. But that can make sense. Kind of, I like the story of kind of the beginning of. I don't like the story, but I like kind of like the horror when his mum died.
Yeah.
Imagine his dad kind of wanting to support him and doesn't really know how to because he's not really been. His mum's always been the one who really looks after him, and he kind of loses hope, doesn't know what to do, and he turns to drink. And then I don't think the government put you into rehabs. I think he's probably like social services, like probably the teacher at school would say, ask the social services to check on Ethan's dad because Ethan's coming without his clothes washed or whatever, and then they find out his dad's not looking after him because he's a drunk or he's a drug addict or whatever. That's probably the route. I don't think the police don't put you into rehab.
Okay.
So just like little things like that. That's my only point.
So like basic facts need to be finalised.
Just make people at my age who go, oh wait, and if I watch that, I'd be like, that doesn't happen. And when someone's done that, then they're kind of not believing anything. So you kind of just have to make it feel real. If it's set in now, if it was set in the 70s, definitely people went to orphanages in the 70s.
Yeah.
But orphanages haven't happened for years and years. And I just think drink is a real problem. This is a story that kind of there'll be loads of stories out there that kind of have bits of this in, and the more you read
something a bit more relevant to modern day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, people are drug addicts, but I don't know if it's. I don't know. I mean,
do you think that alcohol is a bit more realistic?
Yeah, it's a bit more believable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand that.
People don't have costs.
If you could change anything about how the film is made or the opening sequence, what would you change?
Which bit is the opening sequence?
So you know how he Okay, so you know how he goes to the train station.
Yeah.
That scene.
So he's got the letter from his dad. He's found it. He's stolen some money. He's got himself a bag. He's like, "Fuck off this orphanage. I'm leaving." And he jumps on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the opening sequence is from when he gets to the station, to the point where he gets on the train. That is the opening sequence. Then when he gets on the train, there'll be like a fade out, and it will go 3 weeks earlier or something like that, and then go back to before.
No, that makes sense. So, I think that's good. I think so, because kind of like what's going on. Why is it? How old is he? Because he was in the orphanage.
He's about my age, so he's about 15, 16.
Okay, so he's like, oh, why? Maybe if he's a bit younger, he'd be like, why is he on the train on his own? What's going on?
Yeah.
The opening sequence, you've got to intrigue people, haven't you? People want to kind of then. You talk about it earlier on about people trying to figure out what's going on. Like you can't give them too much away. You have to make it kind of a bit.
So do you like the kind of like suspended sort of atmosphere within the opening?
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. And the opening sequence is not. He doesn't get to the house with all the drug paraphernalia. He's just sort of on the train, getting out off the train.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I don't think so. You need to kind of. It's only because it's just a plot. You need to explore and stuff. There's like little elements of like, why is he the one that's all the other kids are picking on, and why is he? What do you say he is inferior to all the others? Like it's exploring like, what is his weaknesses? Why are all the other kids picking on him? Why do they think they can bully him? Apart from just like his mum's died, because obviously they're an orphanage. They're all the parents have died probably, or haven't got parents. Just kind of figuring out
something a bit more like meaningful.
Yeah, what is his thing? Is he a little bit autistic, or is he can't talk to people, or is he kind of a little bit scrawny, or kind of like just needs to? But this is just the plot, isn't it? This is all. Are you going to put this into a proper like a treatment?
Having read our idea, what did you like about it?
Simple. It's good. Simple is always good. I think it's good. I mean, like it'll be interesting to see your perspective on it. I mean, in terms of from your age. I mean, you're kind of creating something which, I mean, you know, whether or not you've actually got any kind of direct sort of experience of it is kind of sort of slightly irrelevant to a certain extent. But I mean, normally you'd see something from the kind of the father's point of view.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of see it from that side. So I think you should sort of play to that strength.
Okay.
The fact that you're actually telling it from I think you've got kind of quite a lot of kind of creative license to do some interesting stuff. I mean, in terms of the structure, it seems like it's a sort of kind of almost like an extended sort of flashback. You're kind of not being particularly kind of linear in terms of the storytelling, are you?
No.
You know, it seems like you start off at the train station, and then we're going to go back, and you can.
That's it. Yeah.
You can kind of create a lot of. You can be quite abstract, I think, in a lot of the sort of the sequences, like particularly with how you kind of show the car crash. You know, how you hear the car crash, how you sort of his experience in at the orphanage. You know, that's all kind of ripe for lots of stuff. I mean, you know, the main body of the film really can happen at the train station in terms of his just him trying to sort of deal with it. So you've got like a whole sense of mystery and stuff is obviously just going to be there inherent within the within the story. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good.
Great. Is there anything that you would change about what you've read?
Not particularly. I mean, I think probably it's just sort of clarity in terms of what you're saying at various points. When Ethan turns 5, his dad's sent to rehab. I mean, where's this going? Is this in itself part of your? Is this sort of coursework?
Yeah. So we film the opening sequence, but we have to make an idea for the whole film.
Cool. Right. Okay. Fine. Okay. So it's just going to be kind of like, for me, it's just like, you know, his dad's sent to rehab by the government. I mean, it's just a question of whether or not you want to be like reading that. It kind of almost sounds a little bit like science fiction. His dad's sent to rehab by the government. Like, it's kind of, you know what I mean? So
I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's a question of how sort of specific you want it, but it would be like his dad's sent to rehab by social services. And like, it's kind of like if you're aiming for kind of sort of, I imagine that it's contemporary, it's set in present day, and all the rest of it. Then, you know, it's just little things like that in terms of actually writing. Rather than the idea itself, it's just the actual how it's presented.
Okay.
That I think you might just need to think about.
So you think the idea is good in itself, but it just needs more clarity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
Is there anything that you didn't really like about it?
Not really. I mean, I suppose I'm just sort of thinking about I quite like the. I mean, it's a coming of age. It's a coming of age tale. I mean, I feel really sorry for him. I mean, the poor guy's like.
He goes through quite a lot.
He has his school of hard knocks. This kid's going through, isn't it? Really. I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
You know, his mum's killed. his dad's taken away from him. His dad's then out of rehab. And then he, you know, sends him a letter and says get in touch, and then lo and behold discovers that he's actually got, you know, a shitload of drugs. I mean, I suppose you could do something. Maybe the letter's actually quite old, and he turns up, and I don't know. It sort of depends on whether or not on how redemptive you want the father to be, like whether or not you actually want to kind of bring them together, whether or not you believe as a human being, and this is entirely up to you, but whether or not you believe as a human being that kind of people don't change. That if you're a drug addict, you're a drug addict, and that's it. You're a drug addict for life. Or whether or not you changed it in some way, so that maybe, for example, if the letter's really old, I mean, Ethan's at like his lowest point. He's like looking forward to like meeting his dad. Maybe when he turns up, his dad doesn't recognise him because I mean, like, how long has his dad been away as well?
Well, quite a long time, because he would have been taken away. Because he's about 15 or 16 when he goes to the train station.
Right, and is cool. So he's 5 when the accident happens.
Yeah, so it probably would have been 9, 10 years.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'd question how unrecognisable he would be to his father, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like whether or not, I mean, and also again, it sort of depends on how kind of decent you want to. I mean, all right. His dad's a drug addict, but it doesn't seem like he's. Well, certainly from what I've read, he's not like a criminal drug addict. He's somebody who needs help for a condition, effectively. So often in those sort of situations, social services would kind of keep them up to date with kind of how the kids are, even if it's a lie. Even if they're saying, yeah, he's doing wonderfully or whatever. In this orphanage, even if Ethan is having the worst time of his life, then they kind of. So, but what I was going to say there was that maybe if the letter's old, if it's kind of old sort of paperwork rather than a recent letter that has yet to be given to him, maybe just gets it's got lost. It's been stuck in the right. It was misfiled. It was. Whatever happened to it.
Yeah.
Maybe he turns up and discovers that actually his dad's remarried,
and
has a kid.
So you think that maybe he could be like, sort of like neglected further, but indirectly.
Yeah, exactly. That in a way, or his. Or maybe he doesn't sort of find a letter from his dad. Maybe it's just his dad's address. Social services, the orphanage would have his father's address on update. An updated file. So Ethan goes because he's so miserable, because he's so depressed. He goes to try and find his dad, runs away from the orphanage, and turns up and discovers that his dad's that his dad's kind of got a new life.
Yeah.
Which is kind of more redemptive in terms of the dad, but also sort of slightly less redemptive because it's like, Jesus, this guy's, got his life back on track and hasn't even bothered to get hold of his son. I don't know. I mean, like, that's the wonderful things about stories. You can take it in one of a billion different directions. And I think the direction that you've taken it in, I mean, it works. Like, it completely works as a story.
Okay.
And if that's the story you want to tell, then go ahead, my friend. Like, it's all there. It's all there on paper.
If this was you talking about the opening sequence specifically, if this was you making the opening sequence, how would you approach it? What would be like some key features or elements?
Interesting. So, well, I suppose I'd want to know. Because what you've got here is a kind of, because you introduce the idea that the opening sequence where you put it's about halfway through where you say goes to the train station to get to where his dad is. This is where our opening sequence begins. I mean, I'd almost say that you kind of, the structure that you've got at the moment is very linear. It's kind of like, there's a boy called Ethan, his mum's killed in a car crash, then his dad starts taking drugs and he ends up being sent to rehab, so Ethan ends up in an orphanage and Ethan's bullied and, yada, 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 yada. And then he ends up finding this letter, goes to this train station, and that's where our opening sequence begins. I'd almost think, again, just for clarity's sake, I'd consider rewriting the plot so that you put up, you know, we're at a train station. Ethan, 15 years old, is, you know, holding, you know, has got, I don't know, coppers in his hand, or he's counting his change or whatever. You know, he's clutching onto some train tickets.
Yeah.
Looking at the clock, sees this couple fighting, and suddenly we are 10 years before. We're in a car. You know, blah 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 blah. You know, Ethan's fast. You know, Ethan's sleeping on the back seat, or you know, listening to his dad and his mum having an argument, or looking out of the window whilst his mum and his dad are having an argument. So I just think about how because at the moment, I wouldn't actually know how to shoot this. Like, in terms of, if I wouldn't know how to shoot the opening scene, because I don't really know on paper what the opening scene is until quite late.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's kind of if you want to kind of give us an idea of what the actual story is and how the story unfolds in film time, then you need to restructure what you've written.
Okay.
Which won't take long, but you can say it's all there. But just think about restructuring what you've written so that it happens in the order of events that we see it in the film.
All right.
Because you'll still get all the same information across,
just in a different way.
You'll just get it. You'll you know, and so you know, the whole idea being that when you're writing a treatment or when you're writing a script or something, is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to show the audience how the information is going to unfold, or rather the reader, the actor, the actress, the producer, the director of photography, the editor, whoever it is, that you're trying to show them how the action is going to unfold as you see it at the point that you make the film. Now, of course, that can all change, and there's, you know, as long as it's written properly, there's absolutely no reason for you in the edit. You might want to start off, you know, 10 years before when they're in the car driving home, and you start off with a car crash. That's entirely valid. But I think because you want to start off at the train station, then you should put that front and center.
Okay. All right then. Well, it's been very helpful.